Resume. All right, welcome everyone. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is November 4th. We are here to talk about managing student chapters. I am joined today by two of our experienced student chapter leaders. I have Sarah Bauermeister with Ames Community College in Northern Colorado, and Elizabeth Resch with Southeastern Oklahoma State University. And they are going to help us along today in this conversation. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen. All right, let's make sure that everyone can see us. Rory, if you could give me a head nod that we are good. Perfect. Right, again, welcome to today's presentation on managing student WAI chapters. So the first thing that we want to talk about is the fact that our student chapters are unique within the Women in Aviation International organization. What does it take to be a student chapter? We need a minimum of 6 members and an advisor. Those 6 members need to fulfill our WAI required officer positions of a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, membership chair, and outreach chair. We need to then form a provisional, and then from our provisional, we start to make it official. The student provisional chapters must have our 6 members and officers, the faculty and staff advisor, a $100 application fee, and a signed provisional application. All of that information that then gets turned in over to me. I check all of the information, and the student provisional that has 1 year to work toward official chapter status. Once we're trying to make that official, we must have an application that includes a permanent chapter address, full contact information for all of the chapter advisors, the contact information for the faculty chapter advisor, which is very important, and I'm going to tell you why here in just a couple of minutes. The articles of incorporation and bylaws specific to that chapter, a copy of the evidence, the documents evidencing federal employer identification number, tax exempt status documents, either the WAI group ruling or the university or college tax exempt status, a description of educational or mentoring community outreach event goals, a description of membership recruitment event goal, an official chapter application fee of $150, and a signed official chapter application. Now, all of these steps are things that I will 100% go through with you as a provisional and as a provisional moving into an official chapter. So they're things that we can work through together as we're going through these steps. We're going to move from that official documentation into the important stuff. You know, why are we here? We're here today to talk about what it is to make an effective student chapter. So the first thing that we want to do as a student chapter is make sure that the student chapter is in line with the school's requirements. We want to ensure that we're getting the school's recognition as a student organization on campus, and we want to ensure that we have visibility as a student organization on campus. And at this point, I'm going to hand these 3 items over to Miss Elizabeth and Miss Sarah because they are some of the experts on this subject matter.
So hi again, I'm Sarah. Just to kind of chat about these requirements. Sometimes women in aviation, like Jesse had told us earlier has specific roles that we have to fill. Sometimes the school does as well. So it's important that you structure your chapter to make sure that you can fill both the Women in Aviation roles requirement and your school's requirements to become a student organization. And maybe Elizabeth can talk about some of the benefits of being a student organization on campus.
Yeah, so and of course we'll get into this in a little bit, every campus is different, but with ours, making sure that we get recognized as a student organization on campus is what gives us the benefit of being able to book rooms to hold events in. We can do fundraising on campus. We get listed on the student life page as a potential organization for prospective students to look at. We have access to a lot of those other resources across campus that we wouldn't have if we weren't an official and recognized student organization. That also is what gives us the opportunity to make sure we have visibility across campus, including within our Student Government Association and other places like that. We are, especially with aviation departments, a lot of times we're not on the main campus. And so being able to be visible to everybody else that is on the main campus makes it a lot easier to start drawing in members and actually do the fun things like fundraising and be able to go to conference.
Fantastic. And that leads us into recruitment. Hey ladies, why should I join yet another student organization on campus? Everyone is asking me to join their organization, from the Phi Betas and the everything. Everyone's hitting me up this freshman orientation season.
I think that comes down to what your chapter offers, right? So the unique experience you get, because sure, you can join some of the fraternities or sororities that your school offers, but are you going to get exposed to aviation professional development and industry professionals that you can start networking and connecting with? And that all depends on the chapter as well and what they do. Some chapters are more volunteer and outreach oriented, others are more professional development oriented, and some offer really cool opportunities like being able to go to the conference paid for or scholarship. So highlighting what's unique about your chapter can help you get those students.
And why is this organization more important than all of the others?
Well, it's an aviation organization, and as small as the industry is, it's not always all about what you know, it's about who you know. And this is that first step in making that happen. And as hard as it is to believe sometimes that in 4 years you're going to have a job and need to know somebody in an organization somewhere, this is that first step, and kind of takes some of that intimidation out of it for 4 years down the road when you graduate from college.
How do I juggle student life, a job, classes, volunteering, and all of these extracurriculars?
I think this is where you step in as an organization that isn't here to just assign tasks and make people do jobs. It's here to support one another, right? We're not here to be like, I need you to fill out all these forms and do blah, blah, blah. It's how can I help you do this so that we can open up new opportunities for you, right? It's not something that's a responsibility anymore. It's something they want to be a part of because it helps them and lets them feel supported.
Wonderful, thank you. When we're recruiting members on campus, some ideas that have been thrown out from this group as well as other student chapter experts were things like pancake breakfasts, involvement with incoming freshmen, addressing the lady and gentleman membership ratio, particularly on campus, community outreach and volunteerism events, activities on campus, study groups, etc. And then whatever you can do, make sure you're making it fun. Chapter barbecues, day trips, potluck dinners, pizza socials, movie nights, and more. Ladies, you had a really good point about the third line item there, addressing the lady and gentleman ratio.
Yeah, so one of the things that I know when I took leadership in my chapter back in college was within the chapter, of course, we have to keep a minimum number of students on a roster, and I don't go to a very large school, and that wasn't going to work without having both the ladies and the gentlemen involved in the room. And so one of the things that I always make sure that when I'm talking to somebody that might be interested in women in aviation, while yes, the name is Women in Aviation, we do still encourage that some of our gentlemen in the program also come and join the chapter, because the tools that we're going to be giving out, and our chapter does a lot of the professional development. We do that for both the ladies and the gentlemen in the chapter, not just for the ladies. There are some times that the ladies in the chapter will go and do things on their own. But if we're doing something that's open to the chapter, it'll be geared towards both.
And I think that that is a very important point to make, is to ensure that we are meeting that criteria that is set forth by Women in Aviation, that our organization is open to anyone who has an interest in aviation or aerospace. And then whatever you do, make it fun. Chapter barbecues, day trips, potluck dinners, pizza socials, movie nights. Elizabeth, you had a tale of caution with regard to some of these trips.
Yes. So unfortunately, I learned this one by experience. But hopefully I get to save somebody else the headache of having to learn this one the hard way. Anytime that you do something that's chapter sponsored, especially when it involves transportation, particularly in school-owned vehicles, or any kind of a trip that's being publicly advertised as sponsored by your universities or your school's Women in Aviation chapter, we have made it a rule that you cannot attend these particular events unless you are a active member of the chapter. So for our chapter, that means you are an active member of WAI International, and you have paid the $20 for the semester in dues. Now that money can be turned in at any time during the semester, but you have to have both of those, so that way we can accept the responsibility that if you are on one of these trips, you are indeed a part of the organization, you have a vested interest in the organization. Our chapter has been almost shut down on more than one occasion for instances like this. So just a word of caution, if you're going to do these trips, please make sure that you and your university is being held, you are both in agreement of what you're holding those that are attending the event to, as far as conduct and other things.
That is really good advice. Thank you. One of the things that has been stressed here is that we are creating future leaders. We are taking young people and teaching them some of the life skills as they're going out into the world. We're teaching them some of the soft skills that they've yet to acquire. Elizabeth, one of the things that we spoke about was your elevator speech, your famous elevator speech. What would that be?
So everybody always talks about having an elevator speech for yourself. You walk up to somebody and you're potentially asking for a job, or you're just trying to kind of start that conversation towards maybe a future contact. And so something that our students struggle with all the time is, well, how do I create that elevator speech? How do I do that as far as a leader is concerned? And how do I as a leader also do that for the chapter? One of the things that I've always worked with our chapter leadership on is have a personal elevator speech, but have a chapter elevator speech at the same time. So you meet somebody, you're in conversation with them, and they're like, Women in Aviation, I saw that you were involved in that. Tell me more about it. You don't need anything more than a 2-3 minute conversation of what it is, but just something to get them interested and potentially get them to maybe come to the next meeting, or maybe come to the next open to all event that you're going to have. But that's the kind of thing that your leaders in the chapter should have at their ready and at their disposal. But you also want to make sure that all your leaders are preaching the same thing in those speeches. You don't want one saying, all we do is sit around and eat food and talk, when somebody else is talking about, hey, we do resume writing or scholarship workshops, things like that. Get your leaders together and agree on just a couple of bullet points you want to make sure that you mention, and then we'll make sure that when they do give this speech to somebody, that it's passion behind it. Hey, this is why I'm in it. This is why you should be in it.
Because really we're teaching again, younger people how to facilitate conversations, how to navigate conflict, how to navigate tough conversations that maybe they've never had to experience before. And then the other important skills, how to build resumes, how to interview, building those leadership skills by giving them their first taste of leadership from within the chapter, and teaching them how to plan for the future, and maybe kind of build a business or build a career, build succession planning, which we'll get into here in just a moment, through this chapter. That's going to be their first experience, is navigating through this experience. One of the most unique challenges for a student chapter is that student chapters experience constant change. Unlike your established chapters, for instance, my chapter in New Mexico, or Rory's chapter there in Palmetto Pride, the student chapters have constant rotation because your senior class is always graduating. Whether that be in December or that be in the spring semester, you've got the constant rotation of people. So you're always looking for new leadership, and you're always looking, everyone's always looking for new membership, but the membership is leaving, they're gone, they're off campus. So when I'm looking for new leadership and I'm asking the question, ladies, why should I become an officer? Sarah, why?
I often like to encourage my students to become an officer because it gives them more experience. They're able to communicate with people directly from Women in Aviation International and understand how those relationships are made. They're also given some cooler opportunities, like to come to the conference or to come to special recruiting events, so that they can kind of see what the industry is like and things like that. And they're just given a little bit more responsibility, but also more opportunities as well.
How do you find individuals that are truly invested in Women in Aviation International and not just looking for something to add to their resume?
One of the things that our chapter has done is we require that anybody who's looking to be an officer, for most of our positions, we have one that's not in this particular category, but most of them have to have been involved in the chapter for at least a year. So this would be open to our sophomores and higher, not our freshmen. Again, we've got one that we would allow a freshman to put their name in the hat for and be elected to. But the rest of them, we want them to be there and want to make sure that they're interested in actually helping the chapter succeed and not just looking to write something else down on their resume.
How do you hold your elections?
So we hold our elections in July. It's a little bit off from some chapters because that's when our fiscal calendar year restarts at the school. So it just helps us keep everything in order. And we made sure that in our bylaws, we didn't say that we have to hold our elections via email or via Zoom, right? Or via some sort of platform, so that year by year it can change. So this past year we did a cornhole tournament while we did our elections, just to help people come hang out. And then afterwards we went and grabbed some food. And the year before it was kind of more official in our meeting room and everything like that. So try and make them flexible, because elections sometimes can seem like a drag to normal members and activities they don't want to participate in. But if you do a cornhole tournament in addition to it, you might get a few more people coming.
That's a great idea. I love that. What are the terms of your officers?
My chapter currently does calendar years, so we're January to December. So it's just 1 year. That way they're not committing to, hey, I'm going to be doing this for the next 3 years, but I don't know what I'm doing for the next 3 years. So we hold elections once a year. Everybody goes back up for re-election every year.
I have heard rumor of some student chapters that are actually changing leadership every semester. And that sounds like utter pandemonium to me.
That'd be a lot.
Yeah,
Too many
that sounds like a lot. Um,
Yeah.
I would be a lot of cornhole tournaments, exactly. I would be
Yeah.
very interested to hear how they plan for that succession, because that just seems like a lot of turnover. If you ever have to make that just horribly difficult decision that you need to dismiss an officer, how do you do that?
So this is something you want written in your bylaws, the process of how you're going to do it, so then it doesn't seem like it's a personal kind of thing. And for students who take the big leap in leading your chapters, make sure you come to your advisor with this one. Don't put this on yourself of like, oh my goodness, so-and-so hasn't been doing their job, and now I have to dismiss them. That's something your advisor can do. They have a little bit more experience. And also they might be able to talk to the college themselves, because we can't discuss student relations with other students, but sometimes staff can talk within staff and understand, hey, maybe this student actually went through something that's not only affecting their participation in women in aviation, but also their classwork and other things. And there might be other ways that the chapter can help them instead of dismissing them. And then in other scenarios, it might just be like, maybe they're not a fit for the chapter, and the advisor can take that responsibility of dismissing.
I love that. So looking at all angles of that, and that really leads me into the next question is, what are you using to guide your chapter? Because I think this is an exclamation point moment.
I would say that for sure, making sure that your bylaws are current and up to date, because you can edit your bylaws. We sit down, my chapter sits down once we get our new management or new leadership in for the chapter. We sit down at that beginning of the year and we say, okay, we read through the current bylaws, beginning to end, all the changes we made last year. If we had any, and do we need to make any more changes? A couple years ago, we actually added an officer position that got added into our bylaws, along with the expectations of those and everything else going along with that. So making sure that your bylaws are current, up to date, and making sure that all of your officers have access to those bylaws. So when something comes up, they can go back and reference it to make sure that they're doing it correctly.
So you're saying the bylaws are a living document that change along with the chapter.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I love it. They just don't have to stay stagnant for the next 40 years.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Now, when those bylaw changes happen, you do need to send those into WAI headquarters, particularly myself, so that I can take a look at those, just to make sure that everything is required, which there are a whole 3 sections that are mandatory from Women in Aviation International that have to be included. Everything else is up to you. I may make some suggestions here or there that I feel might keep you a little less headache, or, but I can't tell you what to do. It's going to be up to you, but there are 3 things that have to be in there. And just send them to me so I can make sure that that's in there, and everything else will be good to go.
In addition to that, something that's helped our chapter is we have an industry advisor panel. So
That's a great idea. Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. Again, continuing with that succession planning, some tips and tricks. Have incoming leadership shadow the present leadership for the spring semester. This was something that came in from a former Women in Aviation International staff member that was student leadership when she was in school. And also to have your monthly board meetings on the calendar when the year starts. She said that student calendars fill up very, very quickly. When your student leaders know exactly when they have a meeting well ahead of time, they can absolutely 100% plan on it. Sarah was amazing and shared a leadership responsibility template that they use within their chapter. I have an example here that I am getting ready to put onto the WAI website. This is not something that is set in stone and that you cannot make a living document that can be specific to your chapter. Everything that's in here does not have to stay. You can change it, you can add things, you can take things out, but I thought that this was an absolutely wonderful document to utilize. And it goes for each and every position within the Ames Community College chapter. So for president, vice president, so that those individuals that are taking over those roles of leadership responsibility, they know if it's an individual task or if it's a shared task. And if they have any comments or concerns, what they need to do to get those tasks done so that everything is written out for them and they know what those expectations are for them in that leadership position. And again, I will be putting that up on the website later on today. Planning for the future. These are comments. The faculty and staff advisors, student chapters must have an advisor who is a member of the school's faculty or staff. The advisor helps maintain continuity as the chapter's board of directors and leadership turn over through the school years and membership changes. Having an excited advisor is important to the success of your chapter. Keep your advisor informed of what's going on with your chapter, how he or she can help, and your board members help you and your board members hit their goals for the year, and any important information that's exchanged during the board meetings. Also, make sure that your school, college, university, student organization information is on your official application, along with performing a regular check to ensure that your faculty advisors information is up to date with Women in Aviation International. Because you have now graduated. All of your leadership team has now graduated. I cannot get a hold of anyone in your chapter, and I have a very important question for you. Who in the world do I contact? Because your advisor retired 3 years ago. Oh my goodness, now we have a conundrum. So when you're doing your new leadership, when you're doing that handover and that changeover, maybe that's something that you put in those living documents as a bullet point. Hey, make sure that we're going on and we're checking all of our chapters information to make sure that all of it is current. Got some more useful tools and tricks here. On the WAI website under useful chapter tools, we've got the WAI chapter continuity tool that I was just mentioning. Keeping track of your chapter and your chapter's information from semester to semester. It is highly suggested that your chapters utilize the continuity tool to store items such as passwords, login information, banking information, your tax information, annual reports from previous years. The continuity tool is for your internal use. Please do not send it to WAI. I do not know how much is in your bank account. I do not know what your PIN number is. I do not know who is the signatory on your bank account. That is all internal to your chapter. When you come to me and you ask these questions, and then you get frustrated that I don't know, I am so very sorry, and I will do everything that I can to help you. But these are questions that we need to make sure that current leadership is passing down to our future leadership, and that we have this documented. We suggest that you store it and all related information on a shared Google Drive or in a Dropbox folder with documents, and information is passed from leader to leader. This is information that leadership has access to, not your entire chapter. You can find your continuity tool again at on your chapter resources page under the WAI chapter continuity tool. as you plan for the future, one thing for myself as a new Women in Aviation International staff member that I am finding and running into, my big suggestion is creating a generic email address so that future members can contact your chapter, such as membership at JAC University, which I just made up, by the way. It's my own new university, at gmail.com, rather than using someone's personal school address, your school email address. Because otherwise, when you graduate, the rest of the world is like, hey, I just wanted to check in and see how not answering my email is going. I am finding this a lot, not just with student chapters, but with our regular chapters as well. People are utilizing their personal email addresses as the chapter contact address. And when those people move away or they are no longer engaged with the chapter, now there is no way for anyone to formally contact the chapter because the only contact information we have is a personal contact information. So highly recommend that that is something that you take a look into. Sarah Burmeister, take it over because you have a comment on this.
Oh, on the email. So I can't do that with my school. We have emails that they're very strict with their emails and what we can create as a student organization. And so we have to go through approval processes, but then only one person can have access to that email. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having a generic email. So if that's the case, I suggest having somebody who will stick around for a while, or even maybe your student organization contact, because they should be there for a while. And if it happens that your organization gets dissolved, then that's a quick person to contact. You can just tell them, hey, they're no longer a thing at our school. And then Jesse doesn't have to keep bugging us and trying to hunt us down.
All right, now to the super fun stuff, financials. Every school is different. Here's where it gets really fun. And these questions are one of the things that I am going to ask all of you, our established as well as our future leadership, to bear with me because we are all going to have to do some research and figure out which every school is going to require of us. The first thing that we need to figure out is, for tax exemption, are we going to decide if we are going to go under the school's tax exemption or under the WAI tax exemption ruling? That is going to be, I believe, to the determination of what the school wants. Does the school require you to be under their ruling, or will they allow you to go under the WAI ruling? If your student chapter falls under the school's nonprofit group ruling, then you need to provide a letter to Women in Aviation International from the school confirming that this is the arrangement. The letter can be found in the chapter handbook to provide the appropriate school official to the appropriate school official to place on school letterhead, personalized, sign, and then send back to me at jrowden@wai.org. And then this determines how you handle your financials, because again, this is going to be different from everyone or for everyone. Is your money in a school fund or an account? How do you have access to cash? Where do you get your money if needed? How do you account for your funds? Elizabeth, how does your school require you to handle all of these questions?
So our chapter money is stored under our school's foundation, so 501c3 nonprofit foundation. So we have a letter on file with WAI that says, hey, we don't do any of our own taxes. The school does it for us. They have all of that on file. However, that means I don't have direct access to that money because that is not a real bank. So I don't have like a debit card that I can just go, hey, I need to go buy plates for that pancake breakfast. I can't just go to Walmart and do that with that money. So my chapter has established what we call our petty cash box. And whether that's the right term or not, I'm not really sure. But It's a money box that is locked. It lives in my office as the chapter advisor, and the only person that has a key to it is our president. That ensures that at any time there's always at least 2 people that are present when taking money out of that box. So that way there's an honor system built in place for that. The money that we get to put in that box comes from our chapter dues that we charge every semester. And some of our fundraising money, we'll slide a little bit of it in there if the box is getting a little low. But that way we always have access to cash. We want to go, in a couple of weeks, my chapter is going to go ice skating. So we want to pay for skate rentals for everybody. All right, we can take that out of the cash fund, and then we don't have to worry about it, because otherwise we don't have access to our foundation funds. But we can use our foundation funds when we go to do things like traveling to conference. So when we submit all of our money, because our chapter, we require our students to pay for that or raise the money for that, they can submit all of that to the foundation. It all becomes tax deductible for them or anybody else who's donating to them. The foundation takes care of sending back any of that information, and then we can just use our department student travel card for that. So that's how my chapter does it. I know Sarah's chapter does it very differently.
Yeah. So for my chapter, I can't have any cash. I can't accept donations or money from anybody. All of that has to go through the Ames Foundation so that they're able to get the right tax documents back. Because if you donate to our chapter under the school's foundation, you do get a kind of like a tax credit for it. And that includes anything. So one time we were donated 13 headsets, which was amazing. But we didn't go through the correct process of letting the Ames Foundation know that. So we couldn't actually accept that donation because those who donated it couldn't get credited. But for purchasing things, we do have a P card that we can use. So I can go to Walmart or Target and use it. The only thing I can't do is go to Costco because it's a MasterCard. So that part is kind of a bummer, but for the most part, the school handles all of that. It is a P card for the entire school. We're just in charge of keeping the receipts and then sending them to the right people so that they can put those transactions under our account. So ours, again, is very different, but just make sure you're working with your school to do it in whatever way is kosher for them, because if you're not, you can get in some really big trouble.
Fantastic. That leads us into scholarships and fundraising and making sure that you're asking the right questions. Are your donations tax deductible for your donors? As a 501c3, the answer is always yes, but how it's yes obviously differs from school to school. Do you raise money as a charity or a foundation? That depends, because we're hearing that the school has a foundation at Ames Community College. Is yours also a foundation, Elizabeth?
Yes.
Yes. But then if you're going to fall under the WAI tax group ruling, then that is, I believe, considered a charitable donation. So we need to make sure that we have a good understanding as to how those funds are being treated as you're doing that fundraising. As a school, are you eligible for grants? Sarah had great suggestions during our conversation earlier about applying for grants. Take that away, because I love that conversation.
Yeah. So how it all started was the How to Fundraise Like a Pro session at the Women in Aviation Conference. And all I did was ask my student organization, I was like, how can we fundraise? They then put me in contact with someone from the Ames Foundation who was like, we have grants for this stuff. Like, we give out $10,000 to student organizations all the time, as long as they meet certain criteria. And so we were luckily fell under that one, which was great. And then we also partnered with the school on doing lots of outreach projects and things like that. And so when we do that, I always ask, hey, is there some money in there for us to be able to help fund students to go to the conference? If they're going to be helping run this kind of outreach session, we want to make sure they're trained to do that correctly. And attending the conference is a great way to do that. And it's a perfect justification under those grants to just help get extra money for the chapter so that we can do cool activities.
And then making sure that we know the rules or limitations that the school might have on raising funds. And are they the same for each school? And we're hearing that the answer is obviously a resounding no. So who would you recommend that we speak to as a student organization, ladies, to find out this information?
Your student org representative or associate from the school. Normally they're very helpful. Ames personally has one person who manages all of them. So anytime we have questions, we just go to her because she not only does ours, but she'll do like the math club or whatever other organizations they are. So that's helpful because they've normally seen problems more than once. So it's not just like, hey, we have this new thing that we have no idea how to do. They normally have solutions already in place for us.
Awesome.
And if you're under a foundation, you can always go to the foundation and ask them as well, hey, we've got an account with you. Do you have any specific rules how that account is under? Because like ours is just kind of a recurring foundation account versus like a scholarship account or something like that, that would also be under the foundation. So talking to Student Life, student orgs, and the foundation is my recommendation as well.
Wonderful. So there are multiple entities that could have a hand in the fate of our futures. Yes. Okay. So now on to some of that boring housekeeping stuff that we have to do as an organization. So as a student chapter, there are 3, maybe 4 things that we have to do annually. The first thing is if you are under the WAI tax exempt group ruling, we have to file our 990N and send a copy to myself. The filing window for this is October 1st through February 15th of each year. I will send a chapter leader, your chapter leadership, how to file this document on October 1st and several more times throughout the year before the filing due date. If you have any questions about this, do not hesitate to email me. Again, the email is fairly long, but it is a step-by-step exactly how to file the 990N. As long as your organization brings in less than $50,000, which in the history of Women in Aviation International, I believe this has happened 2, possibly 3 times that someone has made more than $50,000 as a chapter. So it applies to almost everyone. This 990N needs to be filled out. It looks intimidating and it feels intimidating because it has the letters IRS attached to it. However, it is not. It takes about 5, maybe 10 minutes at the most to fill out. As long as you follow the steps, it's super easy. The second thing that you need to do is monitor the chapter lists that come out to you quarterly from Rory. Make sure you're updating your membership roster and that your officers are current. Current as in they are the current leaders, and current as in they are current members of Women in Aviation International. Because when your leadership is expired, then it is putting your chapter at risk with your status. So we'll have to have an offline conversation on what happens. We're not current on our membership rosters right now. Keeping your rosters active and up to date ensures that you're also receiving all of your rebate money and you're getting all of the credits that you are supposed to be getting that helps send people to conference or help pay your annual dues or all of those fun things, help you buy stuff from the WAI store for your chapter. So make sure that we're monitoring those lists and that all of the contacts are up to date. The third thing is making sure that the annual report has been submitted to Jesse and Rory by April 30th of each year. The report consists of making sure that your quarterly roster for that quarter is up to date. The address for the chapter is up to date. Your officer and advisor contact information is correct. Your evidence of incorporation and tax exempt status. And if you have any bylaw amendments, confirmation of your current roster, reporting of your annual education and your mentoring and outreach events, description of your next year's educational and mentoring and outreach events. And then verifying your chapter listing on wai.org and noting any changes. If you got a new website or decided to change from Facebook to Instagram or TikTok, I don't know that unless you tell me. And if suddenly then I get a note, well, Jesse, I did this 6 months ago. I don't know that because I don't have a habit of going, weekly to go check on Ames Community College and see what they're doing on their Facebook page every week. I do try to follow them. Don't get me wrong. I do follow you. I do.
Oh, okay.
But if you're not showing up in my feed, sometimes it doesn't click in my brain. I will have to admit to that fault. And maybe you're going to encourage me to finally join TikTok, Sarah. I don't know. Yeah.
I am not a TikTok user, actually.
Neither am I. So
that won't be our chapter. Maybe it'll be another.
Someday somebody may convince me. I don't know. And then completing the annual chapter agreement, which is telling us that you agree that you are going to follow everything that you need to do as a chapter. You are going to complete the educational and your mentoring and outreach events, and that you promise that you are not going to host any flying events, those type of things that are always standard in your contracts. The fourth thing is checking your chapter rebates. Those are going to come out quarterly in those letters along with your chapter roster from Rory. Make sure that you're reading the language, because she's going to tell you, this is how much your rebate is. This is how much you owe us if I take it from, like, you forgot to pay your annual fee. And if I apply your rebate to what your annual dues are, which your annual dues, by the way, WAI is not getting rich off of your annual dues. Your annual dues cover your insurance that is required of us to make sure that you are covered and you are protected for all of your events that you're holding for your chapters. So that pays for your insurance for the year. If you're not paying your annual dues, then that is putting everyone in jeopardy with our insurance coverage. So Rory and I are coming, Rory in particular, she works really hard. Again, I told you, she's a brain behind the operation. She's telling you, this is how much you have in rebates. This is how much your annual dues are. If I apply your rebates to this, this is how much your annual dues are left. So maybe your annual dues are 135. We apply your rebates. Now you only owe us 86. So pay attention to what those rebates and the dollar signs that she's giving you. She's telling you exactly what it is that you owe. Make sure that those payments are remitted by April 30th. If the payments are made later than April 30th, then there is a $25 late fee. And your chapter payments can easily be made online at the old web at oldweb.wai.org at chapter pay. And then last but not least, if you have any questions, Rory and I are available to you at any time. Again, I try to make sure that I answer within 24 to 48 hours. If I don't answer, it's because that email slipped and I didn't catch it, or it may have hit my junk email and it's not intentional. Ping me again, please. If I didn't get you answered, you are not gonna bug me. It was not intentional on my part. Rory is always here as well. She's absolutely amazing. Highly recommend, if you are not already a member of our chapter leadership Facebook private group, to please do so. I am trying to put out new content there. I'm trying to make sure that we've got some exciting stuff going on. I just created, if you haven't seen, we've got your 6th program there that's trying to put established chapters with newer chapters, being whether that be a regular chapter or a student chapter, where people can either volunteer to be a mentor chapter or request a mentor chapter. And we can get together and start asking really good questions. The more we're active, the better we can get those questions answered. Rory and I are not the experts on everything. We are 2 humans that are doing the best we can to keep up with all y'all, because you are amazing and you're active and you're great. And Rory, I saw your finger up.
Yes, I wanted to say, if you want to become a member of the Facebook page, go out to that page and request a membership. Fill out the questions. There's like 4 questions, and your officers should do the same thing. Then I can go in, I double check to make sure you are an officer, and then I will approve the membership. That's the easiest way to get in there.
Yes. Yes, because we don't know if you have Facebook. We don't, we're not automatically reaching out to people. We're trying to provide the information, but we don't know if people have social media or those type of things. But, trying to connect people in a meaningful way, that's really become a focus of mine. And I want to figure out how to do that, but I need all y'all's help to do that. So,
and you know what, answering the questions on the Facebook page are critical, because sometimes people make their social media name totally different than what their real name is. So I can't always connect it when I look in the database. So to know what chapter you belong to, or your chapter number, or your member number, is important.
very much so. And then reaching out to other school chapter leaders for ideas and tips and tricks. I am aware of our leaders who are active and engaged and involved. If you want to reach out to me, I can help make those connections and those introductions, because it takes teamwork. It takes a village. For all of you who are aware of the 90s-ish, because that's not very many of you. But it takes a village to grow these kids. and it really does. It takes a village to be successful. And without one another and our teamwork, we've got to help one another to be successful. So that, my friends, is the end of our PowerPoint for today. I would love to open this up to questions and comments. I so appreciate everyone who has come in to join us. And if you're able to be engaged and active and involved in this conversation, I would love for this to become a really great place of community as well. Oh, I have Rachel from Central Washington. You were able to make it. There she is. Okay.
We have no questions in chat, so if you have any questions, feel free.
Yeah, I am trying to, well, we kind of officially got our chapter at going in. Our chapter has actually previously been an established chapter. And then it wasn't technically for a few years. We didn't actually, follow up with it or keep it going. And so this year, trying to start it back up. A couple other seniors and I was wondering, because obviously there's, like you were talking about before, there's university requirements and there's the chapter requirements, and you have to fill both. But everybody that remembers the, but before we didn't continue the chapter, before the chapter kind of fell apart, the only people that remember it are those of us that were freshmen at the time. And so everybody else, underclassmen, they don't know what the chapter was like. And so what I'm wondering is if we have, seniors as board members, for the chapter, because some of us are graduating either this quarter or next quarter and won't be here for the entire year. They'll be here as flight instructors. So I'm wondering if we do some of the seniors as board members for the chapter, and then appoint some interested underclassmen as club positions to fulfill the club requirements. Because if you're not, in for the entire school year, you can't be a board member because you're going to end up graduating, or we could at least have them for a couple quarters. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but I don't want to make it more complicated than it has to be, but also I want to make sure it works and we get solid footing so that this continues and it doesn't, end up falling apart again. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a similar thing for ours, because we're a 2-year university. So we don't really have seniors very often. We just have people coming in and coming out. So our requirement is that our president of the student orgs serves as vice president of the chapter. But then the president of the Women in Aviation chapter is an advisor or someone on staff. The only requirement is that they have to be on staff. If you select that person to be the advisor, that's great. But in your position, if you're having someone who might become that flight instructor, that might be a good role for them, and then have your advisor separate so that you still have someone on staff the whole time. Does that kind of make sense?
I think so. So you're saying like a staff member to be the president of, well, both, like a staff member for advisor and a staff member for president of the chapter. And then for president of the club, you're saying obviously a student.
because that's our requirement, is president of the club has to be a student. But then on the women in
Yeah.
aviation side, they're the vice president. So they get to shadow the president too, with talking to
Okay.
Jesse and everything like that. So it's not like a shock if they decide to go to that president role.
All right, that's a good idea.
Also,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to have people that are flight instructors, as long as they're still around the school and your school's okay with it. Again, talk to student livestock, talk to your student orgs department to figure that out. But like currently, the president of our chapter, she is working, she's not attending classes, she's working on her CFI. And she's still going to be around for a while, but she knows she's not going to be here the full year next year. So she's going to go ahead and step down, but she hasn't been in classes since May. So she's been serving as president all year. She's just not actively a student, if that makes sense. So they're still, as long as your school's okay with it, don't be afraid to have that person, as long as they can commit to the term that you're going to have. Don't be afraid to let them be an officer as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think our club organization, like the people that oversee all the clubs, I think I've tried to talk to them a couple times. I think they need a little bit of help understanding that they're two different entities. You know, it's not just a club, it's, you know, an actual organization. So I think once they understand it though, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know, Rachel, you've got a really, really great advocate with your student advisor. So I don't know, you know, Amy seems fantastic. So, you know, I don't know if she needs to have that conversation or if you would like for one of us at WAI to have that conversation or assist in facilitating that conversation.
I found a better contact that's less busy or has at least a little bit more time to talk to me. I was able to reach out to her an email, and she's ready to start working with us and everything. So, because the normal lady I was told to talk to, her name's like Rebecca or something. She is kind of the leader of the whole thing, which obviously there's already a lot on her plate. So when I tried to meet with her, I left a note on her desk. I met her, but she said, "I'll leave a note because I can't really talk right now." But then, you know, I never got a follow up, which is fine. But yeah, so I think I found a different person that works under her that will be able to work with me. And so I'll get to go meet her in person and we get to go over all the club requirements and, you know, probably work with all the bylaws and blah, 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 everything like that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and your story is not unique. I know of at least one other
sure.
person who is here in this group right now, like a couple of blocks below me from where I'm sitting here. That's kind of the same thing. You know, they had some leadership that fell off. They're starting again, and it was surprise. Wait a minute, we have annual dues. Hold on, we didn't even know. We had no idea what we were supposed to do. Jesse, there's late fees. What's going on? Talk to me. Just talk to me. You know, ladies and gentlemen, if you are running into challenges, facilitate the conversation and let us know what's going on. There's no reason to panic. There's no reason to think that you're in trouble or that the status of your chapter is somehow in jeopardy. But if I don't know what's going on, I can't help you. And I can't help make things better for you or easier or take that panic level down a little bit by saying it's all okay, right? So let's have those conversations and you know, it's all going to be okay, right? So we have Miss Beverly with her hand up.
Yeah, I feel like you're talking right to me.
Oh,
Yeah, because we're trying to be lose our provisional status, and I am running into a few challenges, so I think I do need to talk to you.
my email, let's see. Rory, would you be able to throw that in the chat for me real quick? If you wouldn't mind. Okay. So Rory will be amazing and she'll throw my email in the chat. It's also was up on the screen several times. Shoot me an email. I am here to help. I'm here to assist, and I will give the best guidance that I can. And if I do not know, then I will I will ask the expert who's also on this call. She's the
Okay.
real Molly, not
Okay.
not me under the other, not me under her name.
Okay, thank you. All right, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Is there anyone else that had any questions or comments or just stories that they would like to share? Challenges, tribulations? It's not all challenges, right? We all have some amazing, wonderful things that we've gotten. Brooke, tell me all about you.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. I really enjoyed the webinar that you guys put together. I feel like it's really helpful. My chapter is a small one. We're in Southwestern Ontario, Canada, and we're associated with Western University. And I feel like, so the chapter was initially part of a group of girls who graduated a couple of years ago, but obviously we wanted to revive it because we had new interests because we have an aviation program at our school. And I feel like the hardest part for us has been getting people to commit wanting to be a member of Women in Aviation International, and then kind of how they see that benefit. Because since we are so small, we haven't been able to get the sponsorships and support for like bigger events, like going to the conference or putting together something that people would be able to see their money come through with. So I think if anyone has any advice for that, that would be super helpful, just to get members to realize the benefits of being part of Women in Aviation International when we're just starting up.
I know on like our level, because I'm in the States, so this is I understand I'm talking apples to oranges here, but I had the same problem because it's always been a requirement for our chapter that you are an active member of the international. And if you don't go to conference, and it's like, okay, then why am I a chapter member? Things that I always like to talk about is the scholarship opportunities. Again, we're starving college students, and most of my kids are also pilot majors, so they're even more starving than most, it seems like.
Right.
But things like that, scholarships, being able to make connections. There's the Mentor Connect on the WAI website that I know several of my students have taken advantage of being able to go in there and find somebody, hey, I'm interested in maybe looking at this career path or something like that. There's a lot of opportunities within that as well. And those are things that you don't have to conference is great. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love conference. And
Yeah.
I really regret that I may not be able to make it this next year, but the being able to do things away from conference and still being able to get connected and doing some of those things are great ways to get them involved. You said you're with a university. Is there a bigger WAI chapter anywhere near you that you might be able to get involved in? If so, that might be another way to do something along those lines as well.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. I think we're kind of headed in that direction. It's just obviously kind of not having someone who has been through it and then kind of forging the path is the hardest part, I feel. But we're getting there. And I know that there's girls I'm in my third year, so I still have 1 more year and a half to really get it up and started. But I think once all of that is established, it'll be a lot easier for people to recognize why they want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and keep up those connections, because that's like our chapter, how I started growing it, because I got a chapter that was me, myself, and I, and a binder. That was what I got from our chapter. I started growing it by doing things like volunteering with other chapters when they would do events and things like that. And that kind of turned into, again, some of those trips I talked about. Careful with those, but absolutely go do them. Go have fun. We are not that far from the North Texas chapter in Dallas. So we'd go help them with their Girls in Aviation Day, and we'd get Chick-fil-A on the way home. And I bribe college students all the time with Chick-fil-A. It's great. But we did stuff like that. And they're like, all right, that was really cool. When are we doing something again? And things like that. So being able to get them involved and having those younger students getting involved in learning with you what you're doing to make those connections and those outreaches will help keep the chapter alive when you're not there anymore.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Really.
And then Brooke, we can make some introductions there, you know, in Canada. Nissa is on the call with us today. She is Sea to Sky. They're a provisional chapter that's just starting out. You know, I'll always go back to Stacy Jackson because, you know, what better face of Women in Aviation International than Stacy Jackson? So, you know, we can make some introductions for amazing members there that may be able to come and help interact and even just speak to your group and say, this is why, you know, this is why we're doing what we do.
Right.
All right. How's everyone else doing? Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Other Rachel, as you refer to other Rachel.
Yes.
Nissa has her hand up too.
Sorry.
Oh, Nissa has her hand up. Okay.
I guess I would just love the opportunity to get more connected with people from other student chapters, and I don't really know how to go about that. Would there be some way to maybe in the future have some sort of like student chapter connect event at conference? Because I know there's like the big chapter connect event, but I would love a way to mostly just meet people from other student chapters and get ideas from them.
So we do have the student chapter leadership events at conference. Hey, Molly, there she is.
I'm going to change my background because my cat just shed it all over me. Whew, and there, now she's hidden. So yeah, so Jesse set up our first student chapter organization meeting at conference. We don't know what day it is yet, but it is going to be on the schedule. So great idea.
Yeah, it'll be my first one ever. So if you get to come to conference, please come. Please come so we can make this successful and amazing, and you know, the best connections and you know, continue growing this for everyone. And then again, like I said, the other thing for those who aren't able to come to conference, you know, I'm really trying to figure out how to, we are international, we're not all in the same spot. So how do we create those meaningful relationships? We do have the social media platforms. We do have the leadership Facebook page. So, you know, maybe we can utilize, or I'm hoping, not maybe, I'm really hoping that you will take the opportunity to use that. We've got your 6 that I just created, that channel on the Facebook leadership, and reach out to your fellow Mile High chapter just volunteered. Now they're not a student Facebook, or they're not a student chapter, but Mile High has a lot of experience, and Mile High partnered with MSU, and I know Mile High works with Ames, and so there's all of these little connections that can be made if we just go out and look, and we have to look in the right places. Okay, Elizabeth's got a tornado possibly. So Elizabeth, be safe, go shelter. Text me later.
Same thing is happening here in Dallas.
Everybody's got crazy weather today. Pardon me. So yes, but you know, and if you have any ideas on how I can better facilitate those relationships and those resources, please don't hesitate to reach out and throw those ideas at me. Now, again, realize I'm one person with Rory and Molly, so we're 3 people. We will need your help because we're 3 people with 160-ish chapters now and 18,000 plus members. So we'll need some help to get this all going. You know, three people in 18,000. We'll do our best, but without participation and help, we can't do it all. And Nissa had her hand up.
Hey, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So first of all, hello everybody. It's so nice to see everyone. I'm sorry I can't turn my camera on today, but hopefully next time. So I just wanted to mention a little bit about our chapter quickly because we're a really interesting spot. We're not really a student chapter, but half of our board of directors are students, but we're actually all from different campuses as well. So some of us go to the University of the Fraser Valley and some of us go to BCIT, which are both on the West Coast in Canada, if you're not familiar. So we have a really interesting situation, which is why I really wanted to attend this meeting. And I would also, there were, some of you saying you wanted to connect with other student chapters. I would be really interested in doing that as well. So maybe we can connect on LinkedIn or something after this meeting. But I also wanted to mention for those of you that were talking about how to get like more outreach, we're brand new, so I don't want to speak too much on this. We're still very much in the beginning stages of getting new people. And I don't know if it would be possible for you guys, but we have created a link tree and it has been a huge help for us because you can create a QR code and you can put it around your campus. And it's really easy to scan and it can take people directly to, if you have a chapter website or an Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, you can put all of your links onto that QR code and it'll take them directly to your link tree. And it's been a huge help for us so far. So I just wanted to mention that.
Very cool. Very cool. One of the things that I wasn't sure if we were going to have time for it, and we are running just a little bit over from our hour, but it was just the power of the social media and technology, MailChimps and link trees and Canva in designing Facebook posts and Instagram posts and media kits and all of those things. And again, those things that are formulating and brewing in my head on things that I want to do, I would like to do something special, 4 chapters on utilizing that technology as well. So, stay tuned. That may be on the short list for 2023 as well.
We have yet to do our initial meeting and present it to all the underclassmen. And I'm wondering, because I want to get, we gotta get this thing up and moving as quickly as we can. I'm wondering about how to keep track. I mean, you have like a sign-in sheet at the initial meeting, but also like, how do you present all the information and try and see how many are willing to be members or who want to be members? Because obviously it's just an introductory meeting, but how do I determine, because I want to be able to put names, on the, or keep track of who wants to be a member and whatnot, because that's, obviously a requirement. I don't know how I can do that in the first meeting, or if I need more than one meeting to do that, or if there's any ideas on that. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I was going to see if any of your counterparts were going to answer without me jumping in. Okay.
My chapter usually starts out with just like an email list at like the first couple, like we have like a giant campus-wide student organization event where you can like have a table and basically all of the student organizations on campus and all of the students come around. So we have an email list from that. And then that's where we send out the information about like our initial meetings. And then they kind of stay on our email list for the semester. So they always get information about the meetings we're having, but then we also like track attendance over like the course of the semester to see who's consistently coming and being involved as far as like active members. And that's who we kind of choose from for like when we have events with a limited capacity, we go for the people who have been active versus our entire giant email list.
Okay, is it easy? It's probably easier to send out an email. Like if we do our initial meeting and we take an email list at that, it's probably easier to send out an email and just give them like a date or something to have like the membership by, 'cause some people already have membership, but like to confirm that they're, all right, you know, this is something I want to do. I'm going to be an active part of this.
So Rory and I can always send you who has joined and attached themselves to your chapter. Now, we can go in and attach per request, but they need to make that attachment as they're doing their membership. They would need to specifically search out Central Washington University and make that. It doesn't automatically do it for them. You know, we're not that brilliant, and we don't automatically assume that someone wants to be a member of a chapter. We hope that they do, but we don't automatically assume. So, you know, prior to your meeting or prior to your event, if you want to make a request of us, I can send you a current chapter roster of who's a member. For my chapter, we keep our active membership roster, but we also kind of keep a separate just contact list page going as well. So when we're shooting out member specific stuff, then yes, that's going to go out to member specific stuff. But if we're wanting to get community active involvement going on, then maybe we have that secondary, you know, Excel spreadsheet going on page 2 of who's going out for our contacts list.
Okay. And then how do we update on the website? There's a number on there for someone who's, you know, long since graduated, and for like our chapter contact. How do we update that? Because if anybody tries to, like, if we do this meeting and somebody goes on and looks, and that number is not going to be feasible.
Hey, Rachel.
Rory and I are your ladies.
Rachel, I have your chapter list almost done, so I'll email it to you shortly. And then when you can respond to me and tell me exactly what you want on the website. If you have your Facebook account or any accounts like that, media accounts, just give that to me and I'll add it and we'll be done.
Okay.
So I'll send this to you shortly.
All right, not a problem. And then what would you guys recommend for a contact? Are you recommending, because we talked about the president of chapter being a staff member, the vice president of the chapter being the president of the club. Who exactly, like what position would be a good contact to have on there? Is it going to be the advisor, or should it be the president of the actual chapter or the club, or what's a good number to have on there?
So that is up to you. You can make it your chapter president, you can make it your membership. You know, who's going to be the most responsive? Is your membership chair going to be the person? Because whose responsibility is that? Take a look at your bylaws. What do your bylaws say? Who's responsible for those new members? And you're in a better position than a lot because you've already got bylaws established.
Yes.
We may want to take a look at those and we may want to revamp them, but you've already got them established. So you've got a starting place.
That's good. And if we have any questions, you know, will our prospective members of our chapter, or at least of like the board of our chapter and club, be able to reach out to you through a Zoom thing again, and we can go through documents together? And
Absolutely.
Okay. Cool.
You know, again, if I don't answer you in 24 to 48 hours, it's because I
manage a lot, so
missed your email. Email me again. It was not on purpose.
Oh yeah, not a problem. Yeah, well, I think I have all the documents, I believe, for when the chapter ended or not ended, but you know, in 2020.
It paused because of COVID. Everybody's got that COVID pause.
Okay.
Pandemic pause. It right, or you know, it's got the same.
Yeah. Right. Well, that I think I'm sure I'll come up with more questions. I'm excellent at remembering anything. So no.
And Rachel, I'm gonna reach out to you so that you've got all of my contact information. All right, you've got my cell phone. You'll have my email, you'll have everything.
Perfect.
So again,
Great.
like there's no point, there's no panic. Nothing's burning down. Everybody's good. And we will get through it together.
Awesome. Yeah, and I have to, because we're kind of a rural school, like there's really not a lot to do around here. So I think there's a few restaurants that will let us do fundraising there. I think that was my other question, was fundraising, what people have idea wise, because we have like 3 in town, including a fast food restaurant, that we can take like 10% or whatever for a certain set of hours one night. But there's also like just thinking fundraising wise, because we want to, you know, get solid footing for, you know, the future years. I'm just trying to come up with ideas, but it's also like, you know, we live in the middle of a valley, not in the middle of nowhere, but relatively, yes. So if anybody has ideas, that would be helpful too. So.
Pancake breakfasts.
There's a whole list of fundraising and activities on the chapter resources page. I'm sure Jesse talked about the magical page that is the chapter resources page on WAI.org. And she'll also put this in the chapter handbook and give it out at the chapter workshop at conference. But Rory and Jess will go through, oh, here's my cat saying hello, move on through. They'll pull out all the activities and the fundraising ideas out of the annual reports every year and put it together on a list. You can just go through the list and go, ooh, that sounds good. Ooh, that sounds good. Ooh, no, I don't want to do that. So just to kind of share best ideas.
Thanks, Brooke.
Perfect.
And again,
Bye, thank you.
Bye, Brooke. Thank you. And again, that Facebook page. The more of y'all that I can get active and involved and asking the questions and interacting with each other.
Remind me what it's called again, so I can write it down.
It's okay, now you're gonna make me look. La 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 la. Facebook Chapter Leaders Private Group.
We can have like advisors and people on there too.
Tell Rory and I, it'll ask a set of questions. It's like, what chapter are you affiliated with? What's your membership number? And we'll go in and verify that that is correct.
It's an advisors and officers.
Yeah, okay. It's for advisors and officers.
Hey, so fundraising idea, guys. One of the things that we've seen work for chapters, t-shirts, and not just t-shirt with your logo on it, but a t-shirt that somebody wants to wear, right? The North Texas chapter has a biplane rolling and it said, that's how we roll. And then there's the chapter logo on that. For our first couple years, we sold spots on the back of the shirt to companies for, I think, $100 a piece. They could put their logos on the back. And so we got 5 companies together that bought $500 worth of shirts. And then we sold those shirts to chapter members. And so that was $100 or 100% profit. So then we had enough money to make the shirts without the logos and buy tumblers, or you can, buy low, sell high, buy tumblers or bags or water bottles or something, put your logo on it, or a fun saying, or go to WAI.org and buy a bunch of t-shirts. Steve at our store will give you a discount for quantities, and buy the shirts for $8 a piece, sell them for $20 a piece. Instant fundraiser, right? So, anything can be a fundraiser. There are lots of chapters do things like trivia nights. You buy a ticket for trivia night. You go out to all the businesses in aviation businesses in your area and get items they'll donate for a raffle. People buy a raffle ticket for $5 and you give away the airplane model or something, So there's lots of ways to do it. Set your expectations so that, you're not expecting to raise $10,000 or $20,000. Because that's not going to happen right away. If you raise $1,000, that's a home run right there. Right.
For student chapters, I do want to say one thing that Elizabeth and Sarah, and they both had to go early, unfortunately, but they were very, very specific on anything that has the school's logo on it has to be approved by the school before you go anywhere.
Yeah.
Approve, approve, approve.
Yeah. And fundraising. What else? Oh, yeah. You do want to make sure you're working within the school's guidelines also. There might be some things you're not allowed to sell. There might be some things you're not allowed to do. So at all of your operations, make sure you're working in their rules. So as your chapter gets further established, a committee that is often added a couple of years down the road is a fundraising committee. So a couple of, 4 or 5 people get together and you put together a flyer, and all of this is on the chapter resources page. Put together a flyer of what your offerings are for the year. You might do scholarships. You might do send a student to conference. You might do, scholarships are a big winner. Help fund Girls in Aviation Day, things like that. And go to your local businesses, your local aviation businesses, and ask them to donate, what they can, and give them a couple of levels. Give them $100, $1,000, $2,000, and you'd be surprised. People are really eager to support the next generation in aviation. So, and then be sure to give them a receipt, because you're a nonprofit, right? So they've got to have a receipt. But there are lots of ways to raise money. There are lots of ways to do that. The North Texas chapter, for example, will give away 6 scholarships this year to send people to conference. Full airfare, full hotels, full registration. And you've got to be a chapter member and a WAI member to qualify to apply. But you'll get there. It takes time. Think long term.
Yeah. I want this thing to last this time. So
Plan for the future. And set those attainable goals, right?
yeah.
So it was so wonderful to see everyone today. If no one else has any other questions, I am going to stop recording. We can hang out as long as you want, but I am going to stop recording.